Your move, your move.
So kicking us off with the main deck, we have triple of the legendary Fire King Ponix, the heart and soul of the Fire King strategy, and very, very happy that they finally released him after so many years. If you didn't know, Ponix was actually on the Circle of the Fire King's artwork when the original structure deck came out many years ago, and now we finally, with the new structure decks that came out a couple months ago, we now have the Ponix himself. So what does he do? Well, on normal special, he's going to be able to add us any Fire King spell or trap card from the deck to our hand, which is amazing. And then during the next standby phase, after this card was destroyed and sent to the graveyard, it adds himself from the grave directly back to our hand, which is really nice. And we're gonna essentially create an infinite loop between Ponix and our other Fire King cards, constantly adding themselves back from the standby phase and gaining resources over time, controlling the board state, and eventually, with enough of the big monsters, being able to do damage and kill our opponent. Speaking of constant loops, here we have the Fire King High Avatar Kirin. This card is really nice on a quick effect. Being able to destroy another fire monster in your hand or face up field and special summon itself is very relevant because it allows us to dodge targeted negation and hand traps like Impem, Veiler, or Mourner on the Ponix, which is essential because we really do need Ponix to resolve, because he gives us access to the Sanctuary, which gives us access to the island, which becomes a rota every single turn. And if he himself is destroyed from anywhere, even from the deck, which it comes up with our next card, and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Fire King monster from the hand or grave, and then destroy one card on the field, non-targeting, which is very nice and very good disruption to have. For a 2-of here, we have double of the Sacred Fire King Garunix, the Mega Chicken as I call him, and he is essential as well for creating these loops. If a monster that was originally fire is destroyed by battle or card effect, he can special summon himself from the graveyard or hand. Important that from the graveyard, because he does not have, if this card leaves the field, banish it restriction, meaning he'll just constantly summon himself every single turn, providing fire monsters are being destroyed. And if this card is normal or special summoned, you can destroy a fire beast, beast warrior, or winged beast monster in your hand, deck, or field, and this card gains the attack. And the relevant part of it is that we can destroy the Kirin directly from the deck, and then Kirin will trigger special summoning something from our grave and destroying a card on the field. And he's also level 8 like the Kirin, allowing for Xyz plays. For another 2-of, we have double of the Fire King Avatar Arvata. I really like this card, but you wouldn't want to play it at 3 anymore because you don't want to be breaking on this card. It's essentially our monster negation, so when a monster effect is activated, while this monster is on the field, you can negate the activation and destroy one other fire monster in your hand or face of field. As you've seen from the others, we can constantly just recur them back to our hand during the standby phase, the Ponix, so we're always going to have that negate live. And if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you target a fire beast, beast warrior, or winged beast monster in your grave, special summon it, negate its effects, also destroy it during the end phase. So this is relevant because we can summon back our Kirin, and then when Kirin gets destroyed in the end phase, Kirin effect, reborn our Avatar, pop a card, and then we have the Avatar live again, and when it gets outed, we can reborn the Kirin and create a little infinite loop. For a 1-of, I have the 1 Fire King Avatar Rangbali. This is our spell and trap negate. Same sort of conditions as the Avatar in terms of you have to destroy a different fire monster from our hand or field, and then you can negate the activation of a spell or trap, which is amazing. Sadly, it doesn't have any good effects if it goes to the graveyard. It doesn't have any, actually. But it does have the effect that if a face-up Fire King monster is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. So, pretty nice, and I think it's good to play at least 1. I wouldn't play more than 1, though. Some people don't play it at all. That's, I think, an option. I think post-siding, this card is very good because you can negate the blowout cards like Harpy's Feather Duster, Cosmic Cyclone, and that type of thing. We have, for the last Fire King in the main deck, we have the Fire King Avatar Barong. People say he's a brick, he kind of is. The main purpose of him is because we are going to destroy him with our Garunix, and then that's going to allow us to get a search during the standby phase. That's the whole sort of reason that we play the Barong, is to get that search when destroyed. So that's about it. We don't really want to see it on a hand, we prefer it in the deck. For the spells, we have double of the Fire King Sanctuary, so amazing card. When this card is activated, it directly places an island into the field zone, which is amazing. And then it also gives it protection in terms of once per turn, if a card in the field zone would be destroyed by card effect, you can destroy 1 fire monster in your hand or face up field instead. This is important because if Fire King Island leaves the field by destruction or banishment, it's going to Raigeki our board, which we don't want to happen. So good thing that we have some protection. Also, once per turn, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon 1 fire Xyz monster using only Fire King monsters you control. Relevant because we have 2 level 8s, and the Fire King Xyz monster is also a level 8, allowing us to Raigeki our opponent's board as well with the Sanctuary. Really, really nice. Speaking of the Fire King Island, we have double Fire King Island. The rota for the deck, highly searchable because we have 3 opponents that can get Sanctuary or Island itself. And essentially is, if this face-up card leaves the field zone and it's to the graveyard or banish, it destroys all monsters we control, which isn't great. So we do got to be careful of that. But it has 2 main effects, which is during the main phase, destroy a monster in your hand or field. And if you do add a Fire King monster from your deck to your hand, doesn't have to be fire, that can be any monster, which is nice. And if you don't want to use that effect, you can do the other effect is, if you control the monsters, you can special summon 1 Fire Winged Beast monster from your hand. Remember, you can only use 1 effect and only once that turn, so you can't do both effects, you have to pick. Usually you go for the rota. For another 2 of, I have double Fire King Skyburn. I really like this card. People play it at 1. I think in the more pure versions like this one is, you need to play 2. I just think this card is incredible. The fact that it targets an equal number of Fire King monsters you control and cards your opponent controls and destroys them is very, very free, considering all, or at least most of our Fire King monsters want to be in the graveyard or have effects when destroyed, which is amazing. And also, if a Fire King card you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Extra protection for the field spell, or just extra protection for your big monsters. If you don't want to out them just yet, you can just banish it instead. And for the last spell here, we don't play any of the traps. We have 1 circle of the Fire Kings with the little Ponyx. So it was sort of shown that there was going to be future support because we did have the Ponyx here. And obviously he didn't exist until the second wave of structure decks came out. But why do we play this card? It basically allows us to OTK with our Fire Kings. And I feel like in the non-pure versions that play the Snake Eyes, you don't need to play Circle because you have a lot of pressure with the Snake Eyes, but we don't have that, so we're going to be playing the Circle. So what does it do? On a quick effect, it targets 1 fire monster you control and 1 fire in the grave, destroy that monster, and special summon the other. Remember, if you have the Sacred Garunix in the graveyard, that will trigger Garunix as well, and it will reborn itself, causing it to destroy a card. You can destroy Kirin, you can destroy Avatar, allowing us to special summon another monster, which is how, basically, with that, we can push for the OTKs. For our second engine, because that is the end of the Fire Kings, we have the Nadir Servant engine. Why am I playing this engine? Because this engine synergizes extremely well with the Fire Kings. If you don't know, triple Nadir Servant acts as a starter for our Ponyx, because Nadir Servant, you can send your Bucephalus II, and then you can get your Maximus banish, do some cool shenanigans, and then once you send the Tri-Brigade Link 4 to the graveyard, you're going to be able to directly search your Ponyx from your deck to your hand. So again, more starters. This card in this deck is a better Sky Striker Engage. It lets you go like +3, +4. It's absolutely insane, and you always want to see it in your hand. For the targets, we play the 1 Maximus. Again, this card is very, very free in this deck. And the 1 Fleur de Lis. We don't play the Ecclesia, never found a need for it. You can arguably play it if you wish. I just want to play the Maximus and the Fleur de Lis. So Maximus sends 2 monsters with different names from both our extra deck and our opponents. You got to be careful of that. If you're playing like a pure Voiceless Voice, they will have things to send and they will gain advantage. But hopefully, in most case scenario, you're going to be gaining advantage while your opponent's going to be getting rid of random cards. And then obviously the cards we send are going to trigger, allowing us to gain infinite amount of advantage. And we have the 1 Dogmatica Fleur de Lis. Annoying when you draw it, don't get me wrong. It is a bit of a brick if you draw it without any Dogmaticas. But if you have the Maximus and you can search it in the end phase with the Ash Dragon, you're going to be able to have a quick effect negate as well. So very, very nice. And I think it's good enough that you do play it for that reason. For the hand traps, and we have quite a few. We are sort of playing a heavy hand trap build here. We have triple Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Generic, very good. Careful, it's a fire for heater plays on your opponent's turn. We have the triple Effect Veiler, not once per turn. Effect negation is amazing. We have the triple Ghost Spell. I play the Ghost Spell because I play Crossout Designator, and Ghost Spell is a card that can stop the Nadir Servant alongside Ash. So if we play Ash and Bell on Nadir Servant, it's always going to go through if we have the Crossout and they throw either one of those. So that's why I play the Bell. And Bell is good enough that you can play it. It's good into Labyrinth. It has good sort of synergies with other things as well. Since it negates activation, you can hit that Tempai Dragon in the damage step and negate the activation to reborn a card. Just random synergies like that. Obviously hits Nadir Servant as well. So just, has niche applications, but allows us, in this case, to protect our Nadir Servant, which we need to go through. We have, for the last hand traps, I think that was 12. Triple Infinite Impermanence. So I think with 12 hand traps on a 40 card deck, you have an okay chance of seeing 1 Well, you have a good chance of seeing 1 and an okay chance of seeing 2, which is more or less what you need. And remember that the Kirin is a quick effect, so you can blow up cards on your opponent's turn and start your plays, essentially. So Kirin can act as a little pseudo hand trap too. So triple imperm, again, not once per turn, and just very, very good. For the flex spots, we play double crossout designator with the 1 call by. This allows us decent amount of protection between hand traps and other random things like imperm that we can't call by. Also, crossout in the mirror match is very good. You can just call the Ponix, you can call whatever, and it has applications like that. If your opponent activates as a servant, you can cross out it as well. So it has, you know, the more diverse of a deck you play, the better your crossouts are going to be, is essentially what I'm trying to say. And now very, very cheap too, thanks to Rarity Collection 2. Very, very budget deck this is. And we have, for the last card, a extra starter. We have the 1/1-for-1. We play a lot of hand traps, so why not be able to convert one of our hand traps into a Ponix and kickstart our engine, essentially acting as another starter. So we have the 1/1, we have the 3 Ponix and the 3 Nadir's Servant. That's 7 starters in a 40-card deck. I believe that gives us a pretty good chance of opening a starter. And, you know, consistency is king when it comes to big events, so that is why I decided to go for a more consistent build. Would I play the Snake Eyes card? You can indeed, but I prefer the 1/1 in this build in particular because we play so many hand traps that we can just convert a hand trap into a Ponix. That is it for the main deck. Let's now move on to the extra deck. So now let's move on to the extra deck. For the Tri-Brigade cards, we actually have quite a few. We have the Tri-Brigade Link 5, we have the Tri-Brigade Link 4, and Farajit in the Tri-Brigade Link 2. Why do I play these cards? Well, these cards allow us to gain a decent amount of advantage with our Nadir's Servant and our Maximus. Why do we play the Link 5 if the Link 5 is just going to be able to dump any of the other links? That is in case we open the Maximus and we want to search the Fleur-de-Lis, we have the chance to do that by playing the Bucephalus II, and that's why I play it. So what do these cards do in the graveyard? Well, the Bucephalus II is going to be able, as I said, to send a Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast from the extra deck directly to the graveyard. So it's essentially just a Foolish Burial for the extra deck, which is pretty nice. We have the Tri-Brigade Shureg, the Ominous Omen. This card is pretty important. This card allows us to search Ponix. How? Because in order to summon Maximus, we're going to have to banish a card to summon it, meaning we'll have 1 banished Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast monster in the Bucephalus, and that allows us to, when it goes to the graveyard, add a Beast Warrior, Winged Beast equal to the amount of monsters that are banished minus less in level or the same level. Excuse me, that was very difficult to say. And I'm going to restart. Okay, starting off with the extra deck, we have the 1 Tri-Brigade Bucephalus, the 1 Tri-Brigade Shurag, and the 1 Tri-Brigade Farajit. This is our Tri-Brigade little package. Why do we play them? Well, Bucephalus allows us to dump a monster when it's sent to the graveyard. You might be thinking, just don't play it and save an extra deck space. If we want to search our Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis instead of Maximus, we have the option by playing the Bucephalus. And I'm going to explain quickly what they do in the graveyard. So Bucephalus, as I said, is a Foolish Burial. The Shurag, when sent to the graveyard, is going to allow us to add a Ponix, because we will always have 1 Beast Warrior, Winged Beast banished, and this card allows us to add monsters with an equal or less level than those cards banished, so a Ponix. And our Tri-Brigade Farajit allows us to draw 1 card and place 1 card from the hand to the bottom of the deck. So if we draw any of our bricks, in terms of if we draw our Fleur-de-Lis, if we draw our Baron, this allows us to put it to the bottom and replace it with a fresh card. For our more generic links, we have the link to Hita. I think Hita is very, very nice, very, very good. It allows us to extend quite a bit. We have the 1 Secure Gardener with the 1 Salamangreat Almirage. This is if we open a hand trap, we can convert it into a body in the graveyard for our Maximus. So if we open Maximus and a hand trap, normal hand trap, summon Almirage, summon Secure Gardener over Almirage. Now we have access to our Maximus by just banishing the Almirage in the grave. So that is why we play it. We don't play any SP because, as I said, and this is going towards a more budget build. Of course, you can play SP. You can play a lot of cards in here that will make it very, very good. As I said, budget build, so we are staying away from the SP for now. For the fusion monsters, we have, as I said, the Ash Dragon. This allows us to grab the Fleur-de-Lis on the end phase for the summon and negate. We have the one Garua, which is very, very cheap now, thanks to Rarity Collection 2, so it allows us to stay in budget. When it goes to the graveyard, it just draws a card, which turns a Nadir Servant into a draw one with a upside, because we can be able to grab Maximus. Maximus is going to give us more cards. We have a one Mud Dragon, as we play Super Poly in the side. One Elder Entity Entis. So as soon as this card touches the graveyard, it's just going to destroy one card on the field, which is pretty nice. And we have the one Xyz in the Garunix Eternity, Hayang of the Fire Kings. We make this with our Fire King Sanctuary on our opponent's turn, and essentially when this card is made, it's going to be able to destroy all other monsters on the field. And then you can detach a material from this card, target a spell trap on the field, destroy it, and it gains 500 attack permanently, which is pretty cool. If this card is destroyed while it has material, it's going to be able to special summon Fire King monsters from the graveyard up to the number of materials this card had. Amazing for OTKs with the circle. We have the one Golden Castle Beast Malong. If you don't want to destroy with Entis, you can send this and it essentially returns it to the hand, which is pretty nice. And now for the last three, you're going to have to forgive me as I don't own the cards at the moment, but just pretend. We have the Link 3 Promethean Princess, we have the Ambler Whale, and we have the Zealantis. All very, very cheap cards. I think the Princess is like £10, so very, very cheap. The Whale is very cheap, and I believe the Zealantis is hopefully still cheap. And this allows us to, if we wish, with the Heater, extend into a Promethean Princess, reborn something, make the Whale, and we can sit on the Whale with the Promethean to pop something, popping the Whale, bringing back the Heater. Or we can turn it into a Zealantis, which allows us to banish everything on the field, return it back, and the Zealantis would be in a non-extra monster zone, obviously getting us out of the fire lock as well, because Promethean goes into the Whale, and then the Whale would just immediately be used into the Zealantis. And then we have the pop in the battle phase, and just a generally quite a good card to play with the Whale, so that is why we are doing that. So that is the end of this budget Fire King deck profile. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys are absolute legends, you guys can price up the entire deck in the comments and let me know. I believe when I priced it up, it was less than £50. Obviously, I haven't shown the side, but the side would consist of Super Polys, Dark Ruler No Mores, and just board breakers, and Nibiru's obviously as well. And we also play we have the Win in Time, which is when you blow up the Fire King Kirin, the main deck monster, it allows us to destroy a fire in the deck, and then we would destroy the Scatter Shot do burn, and that's how we have a Win in Time as well. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this profile, and I'll see you all in the next video.
It's time! Let's go!